Hi, friends. Welcome again to another episode of Beyond the Clouds Edge to Edge Transformation. And talking about transformation, we have with us Dr. Yervant Zorian. He has not only transformed many parts of the industry, including functional safety, security, and now Silicon Lifecycle Management, but also his motherland, Armenia. So, Yervant, tell us about yourself. How did your journey begin?
Thank you. Thanks. This is a great opportunity, first of all, and great series that you are organizing. So I'd like to thank you for that. Shankar, I started with my interest in the technology domain, with my interest in science, from my younger ages, from school to university. But the formation of my career was in the university level, especially when I did my graduate studies in the domain of silicon, in the domain of semiconductors, and I studied at my master's and PhD degrees how to handle the health of semiconductors. So I went to the area of testing initially. Testing is very important because as we manufacture chips, we always have certain defectivities that we would not intended, but they are there. And the smaller the chips, the less defects there were there. Today, by having huge, very large chips, billions, tens of billions, hundreds of transistors, having defects in them is quite natural. So what I started with is how to test those and to make them healthy. And then I continued my journey by going to Bell Labs after I finished my PhD at McGill. And in Bell Labs, I continued along the same lines, how to self-test the chips by themselves. So I like to see things become autonomous, not dependent on others. That's why for me, BIST from initial days was very interesting. How you can make a entity, a block inside the chip, self-testable. And then delegate more. Over the years, a few years after, we had to make self-repairable units inside the chip. So now they can repair themselves. And then even more. So with that, I after Bell Labs, I came to Silicon Valley. In short, I went through a couple of startups, through Logic Vision, through Virage Logic, and then Virage Logic became part of Synopsys. So I'm currently, in the past 12 years, I'm part of Synopsys as chief architect and became fellow of Synopsys. So what I do there, continue the same, making self-contained intelligent entities in the chip, but not necessarily in their function, but rather in their health.
It's amazing. So you were in autonomous systems. We used to call them built-in self-test or self-repair systems way before, almost 30 plus years ago.
That's
Tell us the
correct.
story of how autonomous systems have evolved from those days to what it seems to be now.
Yes, they evolved a lot actually, and they evolved because of our ability to put more and more into the chips, right? The first chip was the first transistors was designed at Bell Labs. The first chip had only a single transistor. But then, as we added and added, the power of that chip in terms of computation, in terms of communication, in terms of storage, memory. So in every aspect, it started to increase. So those autonomous systems, even though they were autonomous early on as well, but they were doing very small tasks. Today, they can do a lot. If you open your mobile phone, you see one chip in it. And the amount of functions it has, they used to be separate products each. As we all know, from the camera to your telephone to your watch to your everything is included, and it's all a single chip. So a single chip can do autonomously a lot more because of Moore's law, because of what we were able to contain in that chip. And this is continuing. We are on a journey that doesn't stop yet. So we'll do much more. So looking at the autonomous systems, I would say that they are the same in terms of autonomy concept, but their ability keeps increasing drastically. If I can have a totally self-driving car at level 5 when I reach there, it will be doing a big chunk of my brain function in that aspect, running it autonomously.
Last time I talked to you, you talked about Silicon Lifecycle Management. Tell me more
Yes.
about it. Looks like it's no longer just about test, just about repair. It has expanded quite dramatically.
Correct. Absolutely. Shankar, the thing is that the chips, yes, they needed self-test at some point because we had to maintain the quality. So 30 years ago, we started using based inside chips. And it was meant for manufacturing test and a little bit of in-field test as well. But it was only the quality that mattered at that point. Over time, we learned that the quality is not enough. We need to have much more. And as the semiconductor shrunk more and more, we noticed that it's not only the self-test that we need to look at, but also we need to look at how the chip, how the silicon is aging, how the silicon is changing over time. So it's not only the manufacturing, but in the field. So silicon life cycle management means the life cycle throughout, from the time you design the chip, then you manufacture it through different stages, but then you're using that chip. If it's a car, that's say 15 years. If it's a hyperscaler in the cloud somewhere, even longer. So you're using it for long periods. And that silicon changes its abilities, like us. It does aging, degradation, wear out. So we need to make sure that we control that, and not only control it, but are notified in advance. So while self-test is good to know if something has been broken or not, it's good or bad. But Silicon Lifecycle Management gives you the ability to predict in advance before something fails, like we go to do our health check, right? Why do we do that? It's predictive maintenance, right? It's not after the fact, it's before. You check your teeth, you check this or that. So you know in advance if something will fail later on and you fix it. Silicon Lifecycle Management is meant for that purpose. That's why it is management, because you manage based on what you are predicting. You are measuring the temperature of the chip in this corner, that corner. You're measuring the voltage, you're measuring the performance, you're measuring the aging, you're measuring the self-test at the same time when you're correlating those with each other. So you have to provide the analytics capabilities with lots of AI to compare all these factors with each other and to predict a failure. So very similar to our health predictions, what the doctors do for us. Now we have to do it autonomously inside the chip.
I remember my first piece of software at Intel was Design Verification Doctor, DV Doctor,
Was it?
characterization of chips, way back during the early Pentium days. So
Yes.
one question. So you mentioned something about like a full self-driving car. In a
Yes.
self-driving car, there are, of course, silicon is a big part of it, semiconductor chips, but there are many other components too. So is it possible when you look at the silicon life cycle, do you also look at the life cycle of the electromechanical chemical parts around it? Is it is it part of the diagnosis prognosis also?
Yes, it is. So you have to look at it as a system, right? Of course, we're seeing more and more semiconductor cars, right? Now about 50% of the cost of the car is in the electronics part, not the mechanics, not the other things. Right? So the chips are taking more and more roles, and those chips are becoming more complex, of course, right? We have this new way of combining hundreds of chips into big ones, zonal chips, we call them, in the four corners of the chip, doing more functions. But still, there's a lot more outside the chips. And whatever you're doing in terms of silicon lifecycle management, and it applies to safety, to security, every single aspect, you need to consider the whole system, not only one chip at a time. The communication between the chips or cables between them. And if it's real that lots of failures today are not only in semiconductors, it can be physical things between the chips or in the system itself, the long wiring inside the car. So there are lots of issues that need to be taken care of as well. So it is fun to see all these things come together. And you mentioned safety, security earlier, and I think that's part of the health as well. So silicon lifecycle management, it's when you're looking at that silicon, you're looking at the natural causes of the wear out, but also the other reasons, the human factors. Safety is human induced stuff, right? You do mistakes, you have accidents. So safety is human induced. Security could be human or non-human, but still it is an external factor that comes in that impacts your system overall. But you need to protect every piece of it. You need to protect the chips separately, security-wise. You need to protect them safety-wise. Therefore, you have to build additional intelligence. So the whole
So,
thing comes to the fact that you need to build more stuff into your chip, and you have to think about them early on. You're talking about design for this, right? So all of these have to be designed for them in advance. Otherwise, you don't have them if you don't put it inside.
so for example, we talk about these self-driving cars and all that. Would would the system be also be able to report things are failing, take care of me, or go order the parts, things like
Yes,
that? Is that a realistic
absolutely.
thing today?
Yes, things. It's not that things are failing; things will fail. Hmm?
Things will
That's
fail. Wow.
exactly. So
Yes.
this thing has 3 months left. Hmm? So
Yes.
it's
Yes.
the remaining lifetime, we call it, right? So the remaining lifetime, it tells you that this thing has this much left. So by measuring, you would know how it's degrading, and you know when it will fail, and therefore early prior to that, you have to notify so that it goes to maintenance or get self-repaired, whichever the mitigation is. But it has to be early on.
So, one of the things I find interesting is how the world has come full circle for you. You started your life and career in Armenia, and now you seem to be contributing in enormous ways. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's part of my pride in life, um, and my luck again, because I was able to converge two things with each other. I always had passion toward my origin. I come from Armenian origins, and then when I started my career, I was not connected to my Armenian origins. I did my studies. I worked at Bell Labs. Technically, I always was part of Armenian community here or there, doing some cultural activities or student activities at the university. But then being able to combine the two together nicely was a fact that came when Armenia became independent back in the early 90s. Armenia was one of the 15 republics in the Soviet Union at that time. So when it became independent, it opened up and it came out that there's lots of technology that they have developed over time there. It was like the Silicon Valley of the Soviet Union at the time. They did lots of designing, prototyping. They had semiconductor, lots of fault tolerance as well, which is part of my interest because their manufacturing systems were not very good. So they had to build in lots of self-test and fault tolerance and so on into their systems. So after it became independent, I was very interested in finding colleagues, finding people with my interest to see if I can collaborate with. And I did. So from those days, I was in Bell Labs when I found a group of experts, and I visited, I collected them together, put them under an umbrella with the American University of Armenia at that time. We created a small lab and then trained them, prepared them, and so on, and started giving them contracts to do work. So initially, it was contractual work. First contract was from us, from Bell Labs, to do some research for us. And then we increased that over time and started taking startups from Silicon Valley, a few startups initially, then more. And then a decade after, the larger companies started to come and acquire those startups, such as Synopsys. Synopsys acquired 4 of those startups, and now we have a good presence in Armenia. So many multinational went, and now it's this recent decade we're seeing the other side as well. That is startups being created in Armenia and coming to Silicon Valley. That's the other way of the bridge, if you want.
And I
So
believe,
for me, it
yeah,
is fun to see this combination of what I owe to my roots, if you want, and what can come as a result.
and I believe you are leading the synopsis effort in Armenia now.
That's correct.
So tell us more about it because what I've heard from my friends in Armenia is that Synopsys is like the single biggest giant in technology, and it kind of
Um,
incubated a lot of these things. Is that true?
that's yes, that's true, and we're proud of that because Synopsys was able to, even though it went there, it didn't start from zero. As I said, it acquired startups for different companies that had presence there over the years between 2006 and 2010. So yeah, we had few hundred people as a result of that combination, but certain products were being created there and still are. So we have certain dedicated products that are being done there and end to end. So it's not a secondary role the team plays there, but rather primary role by doing from research all the way to QA to documentation. So end-to-end products we develop them there. So what happened is that we started seeing the result, and we trusted the people. So they have very good technical abilities, but at the same time, it's a stable talents, if you want. They look for long-term jobs and so on. So we were able to do that. And over time, the demand increased. So we had to work with universities. We now collaborate with 5 different universities. We prepare the talents during their study years. And then as a result, we hire a good subset of them in our operation. So today we have over 1,200 people working for our units in Synopsys in Armenia, and they're doing lots of excellent R&D work there.
Wow, wow. One of the things I noticed about your career, Yervant, is that you have been an educator, you've been an entrepreneur in startup companies. You've also been done great research, as well as probably you approached customers many, many times. Which part of the work do you enjoy the most? And how would you recommend people have a career as multifaceted as yours?
Yeah, it's a difficult question where I enjoy and multifaceted. Um, it's difficult to enjoy one place in the world these days, because when you think of when you go to multiple points, there's something nice in each place that you would miss, right? If you go to Japan, you find something. If you go to France, you find something else. If you go to Canada, you find something different. So there's no one point which has all of that. That's why we enjoy the multiplicity of those. That's why being able to collaborate with multiple people within multiple groups is important. This is not physically the location. It is the people and their cultures and their backgrounds. And the more you know about their cultures, the more you know about the background of the person, of that culture. You understand better and you collaborate better. So I've learned over time that if you visit people or they visit you, you understand them better, that collaboration, that relationship, even though you're doing a technical work with them, but understanding the background make things much smoother, much nicer, and easier collaboration, easier teamwork, partnerships, and so on. If you have collaborated with them as people, in addition to the collaboration technique.
Now, speaking of collaboration, there was a time when we would meet each other frequently in the same office or would have all kinds of meetings abroad. But more and more things are going virtual. And we saw that during the pandemic. We had no choice but to be virtual. Do you see a reduction in the amount of collaboration? Or do you see that not having face to face, has it changed the dynamics of collaboration? Where do you see the future of work?
There are 2 different aspects of the work, I think. The communication-oriented work can be done nicely even if we are physically apart from each other, like what we're doing now with each other. As if we're sitting in the same room, we are able to communicate, to have our conversation going on without any difficulty. So this kind of work is possible, and we'll do that. And we learned that the virtual world, because of the technology, can bring us a lot. The COVID period went very smoothly because of the technology behind it, right? The education, the finance, the shopping, the bank, everything went so smoothly because we had this virtual technology being created, right? So I think that will play a big role. But does it mean that people do not need to see each other anymore in person? It's not correct. So for work, there are certain types of works that are more innovation oriented on one hand, that needs face-to-face collaboration, being in the same room, brainstorming together, and so on. We feel the difference. If you have the people sitting next to each other and brainstorming each other, having whiteboard discussions with each other, it gives a different level of collaboration for these kinds of activities. Okay. Also, I see a need for in-person in mentorship. Okay. Even though in mentorship we can do this collaboration via virtual tools as well, but new junior people who are hired and the senior people who are there and mentoring each other, not only technical mentoring, but professional mentoring, all the business ethics, all the ways of doing things. If you have them next to each other, that transition, that transfer of know-how is much easier between mentors and mentees.
The old semiconductor industry, we made chips and they were used by the use, and we would throw them over the wall and somebody would use it. But with
Yes,
Silicon Lifecycle Management and with large companies building their own chips, whether it's a medical device or it's a autonomous car or it's military, your customers or our customers now include the whole world. How do you help them understand complex things like Silicon Lifecycle Management? Do you have any suggestions for people in various industries with various needs on how they can build robust systems?
yes. Um, yeah, your question is very good and has multiple corners. So it's true that during the silicon life cycle, that silicon is transferred from hand to hand through multiple stages, right? From the people who designed it to people who manufactured it to people who put it in boxes, in systems, and shipped it, and somebody is using it, and I'm driving my car, and that silicon is in my car. So that silicon life cycle, the story of that piece of silicon is passing hands. Now, if I'd like to optimize that silicon to have the best health for it, I need to make sure that all these owners of the chip at different instances do communicate with each other. But direct communication is not possible. That's why you need data, you need data analytics, and you need data analytics that crosses the ownerships. So that's a cultural thing that we have to get used to. As you are driving your car, you are sharing some of your driving information about your semiconductors inside your car. So you have to open up your data to go up there, and somebody is sharing the manufacturing information and somebody is sharing the design information. If we don't enable it, it will not happen. So if we want to have good health in our semiconductor chips, if we want to have predictive maintenance, if we want to have if something will fail next month or in 2 months, we need to open up our data for it to be analyzed, for the analytics in the cloud to be able to do the job and throughout those boundary lines. So we have to be a little bit careful in opening the boundary lines. So what you said is definitely the case because we have multiple owners. And there could be some who have access to this data, some who have access to some other data. The manufacturing data is not for everyone, only a group of people. But the analytics should be the benefit for the end user after all.
That's wonderful. And now we get into these amazingly complex systems. Before even the system is deployed, like a spacecraft or an airport, airplane, or it's a medical
Yes,
system, we
yes,
now do something called digital twins. Can
yes.
you shed some light on it and how having these digital twins can make systems more robust, or what can we expect in real life out of these twins?
Yes, yes. Those twins are in every aspect of our life, or will be more of it as well. We individually may end up having digital twins as well. So in every aspect that will be the case. But I think that the earliest digital twins that we have seen in action are the chips. We have seen hardware, software, co-designing, simulation, verification, accelerators for that, and so on for a long time. And that's the digital twin of the physical chip. So before we manufactured the physical chip, we created the twin. And we have done a lot with that hardware, software together of that twin. And then the actual manufactured chip came. So the concept of digital twins, we in our industry are very well used to. You know it very well. We have done it for many years. Now we're seeing it in many other domains, which is very interesting to see how it can proliferate, how everything can have a twin, and we can benefit from that.
So, Yervant, you have worked in multiple domains, you worked in multiple countries. Uh, what advice do you have for students, starry-eyed students who are looking at the world and saying the whole world is changing in front of us? Our own children, one day they do engineering, another day do medicine, and the third day law, and so on. How should somebody approach education these days?
Yes, it's a very good question, Shankar. But um, The answer is the old-fashioned being well prepared. Well prepared, the more prepared you are to what the life will bring you, knowledge-wise and experience-wise. So having early preparation is very important. I strongly believe in that. Now, what I will tell our kids or our friends is exactly that. But the only difference is that if we are in today's fields, in what we do, we don't stop being educated when we are students. So a student has to know that he will continue to be a student after he starts working. You are a student, I'm a student, because we cannot stop not learning. Every day, every month, every year, we have new terms, new technologies, new things to know. So I still feel myself as a graduate student, learning new things and producing on them, learning new things and adding my small component on top of it. So the readiness for that is important. Now, in some professions, that's not the case. In some professions, what you learned in school, what you learned in the university, you can utilize it later on. You may change it, practices a little bit. But if you work in the domain of technology, as we do, that learning is nonstop. So truly, I mean, last year, today, I knew much less than I know today. And it will repeat itself. So we are continuous students, right?
And with AI and all these autonomous systems, our life is changing very fast. A lot of concern out there that these autonomous systems will take over and human beings will have nothing to do. What's your prediction on that front?
Uh, it is true. It's true that AI is very important. It's true that AI is bringing lots of change. But my thinking is that AI is also one of the steps of advancement. Right? We have seen the different revolutions, what technology brought in many ages for different revolutions so far. And the AI revolution is a similar incremental step. What AI is doing, AI is taking over certain simpler functions in our life and leaving us to do the more complex things. As previously when autonomous engines started to be created, when the factories came up, things were done by hand, then we started automating things. When the calculator came, instead of we doing the math by hand or by other machines, now we can do it easily via calculator. AI would write the letters for you instead of your assistant doing that. AI would do some searching for you instead of you going and finding those data and so on. But you still need to do the top level. So it will not do what the entirety. So our functions are going up as more automation is creating behind us. So AI will give us a boost more. So we'll do more intelligent things, assuming that AI is giving us all these facilities. So it's just a step towards better, simpler, more interesting life.
I love your enthusiasm and optimism all the time. Do you see any dangers as we get into all these complex systems? Things have overall gotten better, but is there a danger that some bad actor will hijack the system? And
Absolutely.
what kind of safeguards can we do to prevent those kinds of hijacking?
Yeah. It's a very difficult question, Shankar, and I may not have the answer for it. Any technology we create, there is the risk of abusing it. There's the risk of using it for negative things, right? At every stage, whatever we created, we could use it for bad purposes. You can use it for good purposes. The intelligence that we can create weapons to destroy things, or we can create nice things to improve our life, right? In every aspect. So the internet, it gives you good information, and it gives you teaches you bad things as well. Same thing with AI. So we will have that negative aspect. Regulating it, I don't know how much we can regulate, how much we can stop. We're not able to regulate other things, right? We still build arms, we still do this and that, we do bad things via the internet. So it will be there. But education. If we educate ourselves, if we educate our kids the proper way to do the positive aspects by using technology rather than the other way around, I think education and well preparation is the source of good.
So, Yervant, you've done a whole variety of things in your life. Is there something you wish you could do that you have not been able to do, or you wish to do going forward?
Actually, True. There's a lot. I mean, if I look at what I have done is just a small subset of what I wish to do. So my list is quite long and still remains long. I think all of us are like that. I think all of us have a wish list, especially when we are younger. We come up with a very long list, then it shrink. You will know what to remove from your list over time, but other things will come and replace them. So there's no one particular thing that I wish I would have done or I could do. It's a long list, but I think the important thing for us to do is to know how to manage our lists. You wake up every day with long list of things that you need to do for the next day, for the next month, for the next year. Pruning that list, prioritizing that list, managing your time. I think it's a critical thing. That it's not unique. All of us have seen that, and all of us need that. But the ones among us who are more successful are the ones who can manage those lists better, easier. So it is list management, it's priority management, it is time management that we all owe ourselves. So me too, in that case, yes, I have many things I like to do, but I need to keep prioritizing those on a daily basis in order to be able to go forward. And I'm sure you do the same as
Well, Yervant, you do it really beautifully. I remember the first time you and I did our tutorial together, I was totally green, and the way you guided me was totally amazing. That was at the International Test Conference. So you have directly or indirectly guided thousands of people, and I want to thank you for that. The world
You're very
continues
kind,
to
very kind.
change, and I'm sure we'll have many, many opportunities to talk to you again. And you're very modest and humble about your achievements. So let's see the next time how many of those list items you crossed. It'll be exciting to talk again.
Thank you, Shankar. Thanks. Yes, we'll have many opportunities again to continue our dialogue. And thanks for the compliments. I truly appreciate it.